Family Day always smells like grilled meat and jet fuel. Children ran between hangars with paper flags in their hands. Wives stood in loose circles, sunglasses pushed up into their hair. Retired officers shook hands too firmly, as if muscle memory refused to retire with them. Everything felt staged, but relaxed, like discipline dressed in civilian clothes. I prefer control rooms to open spaces. Screens make sense. Noise does not. My locker was down the interior corridor behind the operations wing. Restricted access. Badge scan only. Cameras in every corner. It was not a place for decoration. When I turned the corner, I saw the paper before I saw him. White sheet, black marker, taped at eye level. A hawk. Wings extended. Angular. Head lowered. The lines were crude, but the silhouette was exact. My father stood a few feet away with two captains and their spouses. He held a plastic cup of lemonade as if it were champagne. "There she is," he called when he saw me, loud enough to redirect nearby attention. "My daughter, the cyber warrior." The word warrior bent into something lighter in his mouth. The captains smiled politely. Their wives looked at my insignia, then back at his face, measuring the distance between pride and mockery. He gestured toward the locker. "Thought I'd brighten up her space. She's got one of those desk jobs. You know, computers, threat charts, very exciting." Soft laughter moved through the small group. It was careful laughter. No one wanted to offend a civilian guest. No one wanted to challenge him either. I looked at the drawing. The proportions were almost precise. "Emily always liked birds," he continued. "Figured this one matched her. She doesn't fly anything real, but at least she can look at it." A lieutenant passing by slowed. His gaze moved from the hawk to me, then to my clearance badge. He said nothing. He kept walking. I met my father's eyes. He expected embarrassment, maybe irritation. Something emotional he could manage in front of witnesses. I felt none of that. 3 months ago, I had sat in a sealed briefing room staring at the same outline on a classified slide. Hawk was the operational code name of a foreign surveillance collective exploiting civilian satellite infrastructure. Their marker appeared in intercepted metadata clusters and covert routing signatures. Operation Iron Eclipse had been tracking them for 11 months. I had been the one who noticed the anomaly inside a commercial weather satellite feed, a repeating echo embedded inside routine atmospheric data. Harmless at first glance, predictable noise. It was not noise. It was a concealed channel siphoning strategic logistics data from secondary military servers through civilian backhaul relays. A narrow, elegant theft. We shut it down 48 hours before a rotational deployment transfer. No one applauded. Success in my field is defined by silence. Now the symbol was taped to my locker inside a restricted corridor. "Creative," I said calmly. My father grinned, relieved. "See? She can take a joke." The captains shifted their weight. One of them cleared his throat. The air changed in a way most civilians would never detect. Subtle tightening. I stepped closer to the locker. The tape had been pressed firmly into the metal. He had taken time. "Access badge worked fine back here," he added casually. "Didn't think you'd mind. You're always so serious." The corridor required escorted access. His temporary badge had been programmed for public areas only. I peeled the paper from the locker slowly, careful not to tear it. The cameras above us recorded everything. "Don't be dramatic," he said lightly. "I'm not," I replied. I folded the drawing once and turned away. I did not raise my voice. I did not explain. I walked toward the operations office. Inside, the lighting shifted from warm to clinical. Screens cast a blue wash across the room. Analysts spoke in low tones, precise and contained. The door sealed softly behind me. Commander Reyes looked up. "Ma'am?" I placed the folded paper on her desk. "Unauthorized symbol placement in secure corridor," I said. "Civilian guest, Corridor Bravo, time-stamped 1514. She unfolded it. Her expression did not change immediately. It rarely did. Then her eyes narrowed by a fraction. "Who placed it?" "My father." "Intent?" Unknown, likely uninformed. She studied the hawk. On the far wall, one of the monitors displayed a red icon tagged with the same angular profile. Correlation algorithms do not understand humor. She reached for the internal line without looking away from the paper. Security Review Corridor Bravo. Initiate symbol cross-match protocol. The room quieted. Within 90 seconds, the system flagged an 87% structural match between the drawing and the hawk marker, archived in classified threat matrices. 87% was above threshold. A Delta-level security alert activated automatically. Doors throughout the restricted wing sealed with controlled finality. Public access badges deactivated. A low, almost inaudible tone pulsed through the ventilation system, signaling containment. Family day laughter in the hangar continued, unaware. I stood beside Reyes as camera feeds populated the screen. Corridor Bravo. Timestamp confirmed. My father's face visible as he pressed tape to metal. He stepped back, pleased with his symmetry. In the hangar feed, security personnel approached him. He looked confused first, then offended. I watched without expression. "This is ridiculous," he was saying. "It's a drawing." Security escorted him away from the public area. Reyes handed me a digital tablet. "Formal report, full compliance." "Yes, ma'am." I documented the event with neutral precision. Location, time, symbol description, correlation score, potential counterintelligence implications. I did not mention humiliation. I did not mention laughter. Those variables are irrelevant to systems. NCIS was notified within the hour. By evening, my father's access to all Department of Defense facilities was suspended pending investigation into possible counterintelligence provocation. Standard procedure when hostile markers appear inside secure zones. He called me repeatedly. I silenced the device and returned to the satellite relay logs I had been auditing that morning. 3 days later, I stood in a secure briefing room. Admiral Whitaker sat at the head of the table. His uniform was immaculate, but not decorative. He wore discipline like a second spine. The hawk symbol filled the screen behind me. "Explain the match threshold," he said. I did. I outlined the operational history of the hawk network. I described its use of civilian satellite backhaul channels. I detailed the previous infiltration attempt we had neutralized through concealed routing analysis. I explained why even accidental replication of the symbol inside a controlled corridor required escalation under counterintelligence doctrine. My tone did not shift. Observers lined the wall. One of them was from NCIS, another from Strategic Communications. When I finished, the Admiral folded his hands. "You could have dismissed this as a joke," he said. "No, sir." "Why not?" "Because hostile actors rely on assumptions," I replied. "Procedure exists to remove them." Silence settled, not uncomfortable, evaluative. "Your father's access will remain revoked indefinitely," he said. "Civilian privileges are contingent on judgment." "Yes, sir." He studied me for a long moment. Operation Iron Eclipse requires leadership that prioritizes protocol over personal discomfort. He closed the file in front of him. "Effective next quarter, you will assume lead analyst command for a dedicated unit under Iron Eclipse, direct reporting to this office." There was no applause, only acknowledgement. "Understood, sir." Months later, my team operates from the West Secure Wing. 6 analysts, 2 encryption specialists, 1 satellite systems engineer. We move quietly and precisely. Last week, we intercepted another attempted anomaly embedded in maritime weather routing data. The signature was faint. We caught it before it matured. My father sent a long message tonight. Apologies, explanations, how he never meant for any of this to happen, how he was just trying to lighten the mood, how he was proud and didn't understand the seriousness. I read it once, then I deleted it. Approval is not a clearance. Competence is. This morning, I stood at the observation window overlooking the runway. Aircraft lifted into pale light, engines controlled, purposeful. Precision is quiet when it works. I no longer explain my work to people who reduce it to something small. Have you ever remained silent while someone mistook your restraint for weakness? If this moment felt familiar in some way, I'd like to know what you think. And if you value stories about discipline, patience, and the quiet restoration of boundaries, stay with me. The investigation did not become loud. It became procedural. NCIS requested a formal interview with my father 48 hours after the alert. Civilian clothes, neutral office, no raised voices. I was not present. I did not need to be. I received the summary 3 days later. He had explained that he found the hawk image online, that he thought it looked strong, that he wanted to tease me about finally having a mascot. He insisted he had no knowledge of classified symbols or foreign networks. He described the entire event as unfortunate timing. Timing is rarely unfortunate. It is usually careless. The technical review confirmed no external breach, no compromised systems, no unauthorized data movement tied to his presence. The event was categorized as an internal security provocation with no confirmed hostile coordination. Still, the match threshold remained on record, and so did my response. My team transition began quietly. The West Wing had once housed legacy systems analysts who specialized in outdated encryption models. Now it belonged to Iron Eclipse. We replaced faded threat maps with live satellite overlays. We rewired the room for continuous cross-theater monitoring. 6 analysts were assigned to me. Petty Officer Lang, methodical and skeptical. Dr. Imani Shah, civilian cryptographer with a patience that bordered on surgical. Lieutenant Avery Cole, signals intelligence, former surface warfare. 2 junior analysts straight out of advanced training, and Chief Ramirez, who spoke little and noticed everything. On our first morning together, I did not give a speech. I projected a single slide. The hawk. Not the drawing, the real one. Classified, sharp, precise. This symbol entered a secure corridor on Family Day, I said evenly. Unintentional placement. Correct protocol followed. Delta alert executed. No compromise. They watched without interruption. Procedure protected the system, I continued. It will continue to. Lang nodded once. Imani folded her hands. Ramirez's gaze did not move from the screen. We do not assume innocence, I said. We verify it. No one asked about the civilian involved. No one needed to. Work began immediately. The Hawk network had shifted tactics after we closed their satellite exfiltration channel. They began embedding microbursts of encoded traffic inside maritime weather relays, routing through commercial cargo tracking systems. Elegant, patient. I spent nights reviewing packet anomalies while the base slept. Coffee cooled untouched beside my keyboard. The glow of the monitors painted the room in pale blue. Outside, aircraft engines roared during late drills. Inside, silence ruled. 2 weeks into command, Imani called me to her station. There, she said softly. A faint repetition inside atmospheric humidity data. Too regular to be random. Too subtle for automated flags. I leaned closer. The pattern aligned with Hawk's known cipher base, but inverted. A test, probing for response time. They're measuring us, Lang said. Yes, I replied. We did not rush. We constructed a false corridor inside the data stream, a controlled path. We let the micro-bursts travel. They reached nothing. 3 hours later, the signal ceased. Containment without confrontation. I documented the encounter personally. When Admiral Whitaker reviewed the summary, he sent a single line in response. Effective restraint. My father sent another message that same evening. He wrote that NCIS had made him feel like a criminal, that his business partners were asking questions, that losing base access had embarrassed him in front of important people. He did not mention the symbol again. He did not ask about my work. He asked when things would go back to normal. Normal. I stared at the word longer than necessary. Normal had always meant that he spoke and I absorbed, that he joked and I adjusted, that he defined the narrative. That structure no longer existed. I typed a single sentence. Security determinations are not personal. Then I deleted it. I sent nothing. 3 months after Family Day, a formal review board convened to evaluate ongoing counterintelligence posture under Iron Eclipse. I stood before them in full uniform. Admiral Whitaker presided. Representatives from Naval Intelligence, Space Operations, and NCIS filled the remaining seats. The Hawk appeared again on the central screen. Lead Analyst Miller, the Admiral began, assess the current Hawk threat vector. I outlined the maritime microburst attempt, the satellite inversion test, the decline in hostile probing after our false corridor deployment. Confidence level? Asked a senior intelligence officer. High, I replied. They are recalibrating, not retreating. And internal vulnerabilities? Minimal. Recent incident reinforced adherence to escalation protocol. A pause. You're referring to the civilian placement? Yes, sir. No one smiled. Admiral Whitaker leaned back slightly. Your handling of that incident demonstrated institutional loyalty over personal discomfort. I followed procedure. That is precisely the point. The board concluded with unanimous affirmation of our operational posture. Afterward, as the room cleared, the Admiral remained seated. Emily, he said, using my first name only once the doors closed. Leadership is not volume. It is alignment with systems larger than yourself. Yes, sir. He studied me briefly. You did not attempt to mitigate the consequences for your father. No, sir. Why? Because protocol applies evenly, I said. Selective enforcement erodes credibility. He nodded once. Continue. Outside the briefing room, the corridor lights reflected off polished floors. I walked back to the West Wing without urgency. My phone vibrated again, a voicemail this time. My father's voice sounded smaller, not angry, not confident. I didn't know, he said. I didn't know what that bird meant. You could have just told me. I listened without expression. He ended with, you didn't have to make it official. Official. I deleted the message. He believed I had chosen between him and the institution. He did not understand that there was no choice. There was only protocol. Weeks passed. Hawk activity declined across monitored channels. A separate Allied intelligence report indicated internal fractures within the network after repeated failed exfiltration attempts. Systems, when patient, outlast ego. On a quiet morning, I stood again at the observation window overlooking the runway. Aircraft lifted into the pale horizon, disciplined arcs cutting through low clouds. Each movement calculated, each response rehearsed. I thought briefly of the paper hawk taped to metal, how small it had looked in my hands, how large its consequences had been. My father has not contacted me in 22 days. I do not track it intentionally. The number simply registers. I do not feel relief. I feel balance. Have you ever chosen structure over sentiment when both could not coexist? The formal letter arrived on heavy paper. Department of the Navy, official seal, precise language. It informed my father that his access privileges to all Department of Defense installations were revoked indefinitely under Counterintelligence Review Authority. No expiration date, no appeal timeline, only procedural language and a contact number that would lead nowhere useful. He did not call me that day. Instead, he contacted my mother. She called during my shift. I let it ring twice before answering. "Emily," she said, voice tight, controlled. "What have you done?" "I followed protocol," I replied. "It was a joke. In a secure corridor." She exhaled sharply. "You could have warned him." "I did," I said. Silence. Not because she was thinking, because she was recalibrating. "He's humiliated," she said finally. "People are talking." "About a revoked badge?" "Yes." "Then they are discussing security. That's not funny. I'm not trying to be." Another pause. "You're his daughter," she said. "There should be loyalty." "There is," I answered, "to the oath I signed." She did not respond to that. Instead, she shifted. "Your father says you've changed." I considered the statement. "No," I said calmly. "I stopped explaining." The line went quiet. Then she ended the call without goodbye. Back in the West Wing, the monitors continued their patient glow. Data flowed, systems breathed, personal discomfort does not interrupt traffic analysis. 2 weeks later, Hawk resurfaced, this time not through satellites, through procurement. Lang flagged the anomaly first. "Cross-reference these vendors," he said, projecting a layered financial chart onto the central display. Several civilian contractors supplying non-critical base equipment had recently altered billing structures. Nothing dramatic, slight shifts in invoicing cycles, adjusted routing numbers. "Looks administrative," Avery said. "It does," Lang replied. "That's the problem." I stepped closer. One of the shell corporations linked to the Hawk network in previous intelligence briefings had quietly acquired a minority interest in a logistics subcontractor. Not illegal, not overt, but adjacent. "They're testing lateral access," I said, "through procurement databases, not communication channels, a different vector." We traced the corporate web outward. 3 degrees removed, the structure led to a holding group previously associated with encrypted maritime routing. Imani folded her arms. "They're patient," she said. "So are we," I replied. We built a countermeasure quietly. No public escalation, no dramatic alerts. We initiated an internal audit request through supply chain security under routine fiscal review authority. Flags raised by finance, not intelligence. Neutral departments, less visible. Within 72 hours, the subcontractor's billing access to certain military procurement portals was temporarily suspended pending compliance verification. The Hawk-linked holding group retreated from the investment position within 10 days. No statement. No confrontation. Systems closed the door without announcing it. Admiral Whitaker summoned me again. His office overlooked the harbor. Ships moved slowly beyond the glass, deliberate and massive. "You're expanding beyond signals," he observed. "Yes, sir." "Confident in the assessment?" "Yes." He leaned back. "Your father has filed an informal complaint." I did not blink. "On what grounds?" "Claims retaliatory action." I allowed one measured breath. "Does the complaint contain evidence of deviation from protocol?" "No." "Then it will resolve itself." A faint shift at the corner of his mouth. Not amusement. Recognition. "You understand the optics?" "Yes, sir." "And the cost?" "Yes." He studied me in silence. "Your composure has not wavered." "There is no operational benefit in wavering." He nodded once. "Continue." Outside his office, the corridor felt narrower, not because of pressure, because of clarity. That evening, my father finally called. I answered. "You've made your point," he said immediately. No greeting, no hesitation. "You don't have to keep pushing." "I'm not pushing. My business partner can't even attend events on base now because of this. That is a separate credential review." "It's all connected," he snapped. "Yes," I said calmly. "It is." Silence crackled between us. "You think you're better than us now," he said. "No." "Then why won't you fix it?" "Because there was nothing to fix. Because his humiliation was not my responsibility. Because institutions do not bend for comfort." "I can't," I said. "You won't." "That too." He inhaled sharply as if struck. "You used to be softer." "I used to be quieter." Another pause. "You could have handled this inside the family." "It happened inside a secure facility." "You embarrassed me." "You placed a hostile symbol in a restricted corridor." "It was a bird." "It was not." The silence stretched longer this time. "You're choosing them over us," he said finally. "I'm choosing the structure that protects everyone," I replied. He did not answer. He disconnected without goodbye. I stood in my office for a moment after the call ended. No tremor in my hands, no surge of anger, just steadiness. Ramirez knocked lightly on the open door. Procurement audit closed, he said. No further anomalies. Good. He studied me briefly. Family issues don't interfere with work, he said. Not a question. No. He nodded once and left. Weeks passed. Hawk activity declined further. International reports suggested internal instability within their network, funding shifts, communication breakdowns, rival factions. Pressure applied, quietly as consequences. On a gray morning, I received final notice that my father's complaint had been dismissed. No evidence of procedural misconduct. Case closed. I did not inform him. He learned on his own. There was no call this time, no message. Distance settled like dust after movement. One evening, as I reviewed threat matrices alone, I found myself staring again at the digital hawk projected on the screen. Sharp wings, predatory stillness. My father had drawn it without understanding its weight. He had reduced my work to a joke because he could not see it. Now the symbol represented something else, not humiliation, not revenge, alignment. The base lights dimmed as night protocols activated. Outside, aircraft engines hummed in the dark. Inside, data flowed cleanly. I shut down my terminal and stood. Control is not loud. It does not argue. It does not explain itself twice. Have you ever held your ground while someone mistook your restraint for cruelty? The message did not come from my father. It came from legal. Subject line: Civil Action Inquiry. I read it once before opening the attachment. My father had filed a civil petition claiming reputational damage and financial loss resulting from what he described as disproportionate escalation initiated by his daughter. The wording was careful. It avoided mentioning the hawk. It avoided mentioning classified corridors. It framed the incident as administrative overreach influenced by personal bias. He had hired an attorney. I did not feel anger. I felt confirmation. When systems hold, pressure moves elsewhere. I forwarded the notice to Command Legal with a single line. Conflict acknowledged. Request institutional representation. The reply arrived within the hour. Representation approved. Continue operations uninterrupted. I did. The West Wing did not change its rhythm because of a petition filed in civilian court. Signals do not pause for ego. 3 days later, I was called to provide a deposition summary for internal review. A neutral conference room, 2 legal officers, 1 recorder. State your name and position. I did. Describe the sequence of events on Family Day. I described the drawing, the corridor, the match threshold, the Delta alert. No commentary. Did you have prior personal conflict with the civilian involved? I had prior personal history. Clarify. He is my father. And did that influence your report? No. How can you be certain? Because the escalation was automated once correlation exceeded threshold. Silence. One of the officers nodded slightly. Did you attempt to mitigate consequences once you realized the individual's identity? No. Why? Protocol does not contain exemptions for family. The recorder's red light remained steady. They concluded within 40 minutes. Outside the building, wind moved across the tarmac in low currents. Jets taxied in disciplined lines. Inside the West Wing, Imani was waiting. They've shifted again, she said without greeting. A new pattern pulsed faintly across our satellite dashboard. Not Hawk's usual cipher, something derivative. They're fragmenting, Lang observed. Yes, I said, and fragments are unpredictable. We widened our monitoring grid. Instead of chasing the main vector, we mapped peripheral chatter. Smaller networks splintering from Hawk's core infrastructure, less coordinated, more reckless. One of those fragments began testing access nodes through civilian aerospace subcontractors. I felt the shape of it before the data confirmed it. They're trying to embarrass the system, Avery said. Yes, I replied. If they can't penetrate quietly, they'll provoke visibly. We prepared containment architecture in advance. When the first probe struck, a coordinated phishing cascade targeting mid-level logistics administrators, Our filters absorbed it. No breach, no public disclosure. The fragment dissolved within 72 hours. Admiral Whitaker called me again. "This fragmentation pattern," he said. "You predicted it." "Yes, sir." "Confidence in continued containment?" "High." He studied me. "And the civil petition?" "Proceeding." "Any operational distraction?" "No." He nodded. "Good." There was something almost evaluative in his gaze now, not suspicion, assessment. After the call, I returned to the monitoring wall. The hawk icon remained archived in our system, tagged and contained. My father's legal complaint required a written statement. I drafted it alone. I described the automated match trigger. I described my immediate report. I described the absence of discretion once threshold was reached. I did not describe humiliation. I did not describe the laughter. Emotion is inadmissible in structured review. The hearing date was set for 6 weeks later. In the meantime, Hawk's remaining central node went silent. International partners reported arrests in 2 jurisdictions tied to encrypted maritime relays. Systems closing in. Pressure applied from multiple fronts. One evening, as I reviewed procurement audit updates, my phone vibrated. A text. Not from my father, from my younger cousin. "I heard about the lawsuit. Are you okay?" I read it twice. "Yes," I replied. "He doesn't understand what you do." I did not answer that. Understanding is not a prerequisite for compliance. 2 weeks before the hearing, my father requested mediation. His attorney contacted Command Legal proposing an out-of-court resolution if access privileges could be reconsidered. I did not attend the preliminary discussion. Legal handled it. The response was concise. Access privileges remain revoked under counterintelligence authority, non-negotiable. The mediation request dissolved. The hearing proceeded. I appeared in uniform. Civilian courtrooms are smaller than briefing rooms, the ceilings lower, the air heavier. My father sat across the aisle with his attorney. He looked diminished, but not fragile. Controlled anger held his posture upright. When called, I testified calmly. "Did you intend to harm your father's reputation?" the opposing counsel asked. "No." "Were you aware that filing the report would trigger severe consequences?" "Yes." "Yet you filed it anyway?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because the symbol matched an active hostile network marker inside a restricted facility." The attorney attempted to frame my response as inflexibility, as overreaction, as coldness. I answered each question with fact. No elaboration, no apology. The judge listened without visible reaction. After 2 hours, proceedings adjourned. The ruling would be issued later. Outside the courthouse, my father approached me. "You didn't have to wear the uniform," he said quietly. "I did," I replied. "You're proving a point." "No." "Then what are you doing?" "Standing where I stand." He studied my face as if searching for softness he remembered. "You used to care what I thought. I used to need you to see me. And now, I see myself." Silence settled between us, not hostile, just final. He turned away first. 3 weeks later, the ruling arrived. Petition dismissed. No evidence of malice. No deviation from institutional procedure. No grounds for damages. Case closed. I did not call him. He did not call me. Back in the West Wing, Hawk's icon was archived permanently after confirmed network dismantlement by Allied forces. Iron Eclipse shifted to surveillance mode. I stood once more at the observation window overlooking the runway. Aircraft lifted in synchronized arcs into pale morning light. Systems held. Boundaries held. Have you ever realized that the quietest response can be the most permanent one? If this part speaks to you, I would like to hear your thoughts. And if you value stories where strength is measured by restraint and alignment rather than volume, stay with me.